And before we begin, I want to acknowledge and recognize that we are having this gathering on the meeting on this traditional, territorial, and ancestral lands of the Ojibwe people from the Garden River and Batchewana First Nations. To the Anishinaabe and Métis people, this sacred and spiritual land has been known since time immemorial as Bawatting. We wish to recognize and honor the original people of this part of Turtle Island as we recognize their homelands in the spirit of partnership and reconciliation. Miigwech. Now we have a lot to cover today, but before we get going, I'd like to offer a warm welcome to our MP Terry Sheehan and thank him for taking the time to join us today. I'd also like to acknowledge the large representation we have today of our current Chamber of Commerce board members. I think only a couple of the 16 of them couldn't make it today. So I appreciate, Don and I both appreciate all of you coming out today. Rather than start naming you by names, that many of you, just raise your hand and give a wave so everybody knows who's on the board. There you go. Thanks, guys. A quick thank you also to the Water Tower Inn and Mike at 705 Live Sound for their assistance today. Now our president, Lene Fragomini, she'll be on stage shortly and she'll have the task of posing quite a few questions to Terry. Those questions were submitted by the general membership of the chamber as well as our board. And then myself and Don Ferguson, our staff, we took them, we consolidated them, compiled them all, and put them together with the questions we had already come up with, and well, here we are. Hopefully we get through all of them. Now the current geopolitical climate, the tariff situation, minority government, local concerns, all those things are creating a degree of uncertainty and concern for just about every business and individual alike. So again, thanks Terry for joining us today. Now at this point, Lene, Terry, why don't you join me on stage, have a seat, and you can get started.
Check one, check two.
Is this thing on? Well, good afternoon and thank you everybody for joining us. And I'm excited to spend the afternoon and have a little chat with Terry. And I appreciate all of you being here. We'll work our way through some of the questions that were posed today and hopefully we'll have a little bit of time for Q&A at the end. Okay? All set?
You bet.
Thank you. So, right off the hop, there's been significant discourse regarding tariffs and the adverse effect they are having on many businesses in Canada of all sizes. What measures has the government already implemented and plan to implement to help businesses of Algoma and Sault Ste. Marie manage the economic impact of these items?
Thank you very much, Lene, for that question, and I wanted to welcome everyone here this afternoon, and thank you for joining with us. I've spent my life working very hard with the Chamber in different positions that I've held, and been on various committees of the Chamber of Commerce as well, and I truly, really do appreciate your volunteerism in pushing the business community and being the voice, including board members for the Chamber here in the Soo. And Bob, thank you for the land acknowledgement. I show your respect. Thank you very much, Miigwech. And before I answer the question, I just want to recognize that we have a few folks in the room. We have Lisa Benzo-Allen, Ward 2 City Councillor, as well as Mayor Beverly from Duberville, who came to be with us as well, who's also a business owner, a trucking company. So thank you. And I'm looking for any other folks. I mean, you're all important folks, and I went around and see a variety of businesses and organizations being represented. So, to answer your question, yes, this tariff that we have seen that has been aimed specifically on a number of sectors, but the sectors that we think about, there's about 85% of businesses don't have specific tariffs on them, but the 15% that do in Canada, well, there's a couple right here in the riding. Algoma Steel, Tenaris. We have White River that has a mill up there too as well, that works in the forest industry along with others. So Budget 2025 that was just implemented in November, and that's why I was glad that we hosted this now, because it gives us an opportunity to talk about what's in the budget, what are the opportunities for communities, First Nations, and businesses to get into. But the Budget 2025 has a host of measures in it. You know, when I read the budget, steel is mentioned 32 times. You know, in it, they talked about the large tariff enterprise loan, which Algoma Steel applied for and was successful in garnering $400 million. The province partnered with us at $100 million. And the reason why we did that was Michael Garcia said it in the media, said it in the public, said it to me that without that support, Algoma Steel might not be here right now. They're bleeding bad, really, really bad. So we had to provide the liquidity for them to pivot. And you know, recently we saw the news of the 1,000 people that were laid off, and it's you know, very concerning for me, very concerning for this government. So Melanie Joly came in on the Friday after the Monday, and we worked all week on this, and I spoke with Mark Carney, the Prime Minister, about the support that this community needs, and this riding needs, and that the steel company needs. And we worked with the steel plant on developing 2 new divisions, and that will be a beam division and a specialized plate division. The beam division, because of in Budget 25, we're going to build housing and infrastructure like never seen before, and Algoma Steel is in a great position to take care of that. The plate and the specialized plate can be used in various military, you know, Coast Guard ships, military ships, armored vehicles, that we have done here in Canada. So we've worked with the 3 shipyards, for instance, Irving, Davies, Seaspan out in Vancouver, to make sure that the steel would be used in those building projects. So we continue to push that. So when all this is done, Algoma Steel predicts that we're going to work throughout the holidays and all the way in through the new year on this business plan. And the target is that by the end of 2026 to have these divisions running. So that will mean 500 new jobs in these divisions. It also means that there'll be construction jobs to get there. So that is what we're working on right now. And we're rolling up our sleeves and we're getting there. Meanwhile, what we have done is we've also already announced increase of labor market agreements from the federal government to the province to deal with training and retraining. And specifically, we targeted $40 million for the steel sector ahead of time. So part of that money is being used for the Power Action Center that the steelworkers can go and you know, be supported, look at various training and retraining opportunities, whether it's to go and work at the new divisions or to work elsewhere within the community. So we're going to do that. I still think that there are other opportunities that Algoma Steel could look at. We're building up rail across this country. Perhaps that's another division in the future. They haven't talked about that yet, but I'm just saying that's something that we've talked about, and I know that the steel workers have talked about a rail division, and Algoma Steel used to do that. So I wanted to make sure that I talked about that. Now Tenaris Tubes just celebrated 25 years. I met with the global CEO, and he had said that he was very pleased to see that we were going to become an energy powerhouse. And we're working with them as well during these trying times. So we'll continue to do that. So I'm going to put that there. And now we're going to talk about other things in the budget just very quickly, and I'm sure we'll delve through it. But some of the other highlights of the budget was a $51 billion investment in Build Communities Strong. And that's for the, what we used to call MUSH sector, right? So communities, universities, colleges, hospitals that they can tap into. Some hospitals are antiquated, some are decrepit, some need improvements throughout Canada. And that's one of the things that we're targeting is supporting that sector so we can recruit doctors and nurses that we so badly need, especially here in this area. That goes hand in glove with something we just announced a few days ago, was fast-tracking 5,000 foreign-trained doctors that can work here in Sault Ste. Marie, Algoma region. So I'll be speaking with the city's recruitment physician and setting up a meeting to talk about how we can use this to target places. I know Manitoba is targeting the United States, has been very successful in getting many doctors from Manitoba. And as well, we're going to continue to work on that. I know the universities and colleges are going to be very important. They always have been. We've had record-breaking investments from the federal government there. And I know that they have further plans to develop. I mean, they have the Bear Den being developed, which is going to be a place for mental health and addictions. And that's really important. So we also have a number of other things that I'll talk about, and I'll talk more about throughout, but I've been talking about the first question, so I'll fit in the rest. Thank you.
Thank you. I know it's a loaded question, so I appreciate it. Okay, so there are industries in Canada that continue to buy steel from outside of Canada, including the US. Will the government take steps to increase the strategic criterion that these companies include the use of Canadian products, including Canadian steel, in a federal proposal evaluation?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, and allows me to sort of delve into what we're working on. What we did is, when I think about it, like, I've been honored to be your MP since 2015. I was just elected. The next week I was called into a meeting, Algoma Steel's going into bankruptcy. And so they had said it was because of foreign dumped steel was one of them, other market conditions and things. So we set to improve the trade regime, which we did. And we improved it more and more and more. And that was through listening to the Canadian steel producers, which Algoma Steel and Tenaris are a part of, and United Steelworkers as well. And we continue to improve it. So fast forward to now and today, we further strengthen it. So in July, and this is under the 50% tariff that Trump has put on the steel industry. And actually I was just talking with someone from the chamber, and they agreed. They said, no business can sustain losing 50% of your business or 50% of your market. And that's what really has happened. There is no market for Algoma Steel. So we ended up saying, okay, if we want to create the right market conditions, and I've done this research as co-chair of the All-Party Steel Caucus, is in Canada, traditionally, throughout the years, for decades, we only use about 35% of our own steel in this country, right? And so what we have done in Budget 2025 is we're going to make ourselves our own best customer. We're going to make sure that we use steel and wood and aluminum throughout our major building projects, but we also have to make sure that it's Canadian steel. And so what we have done is we further walled up against foreign dump steel. So anyone that does not have a free trade agreement with us, in July, we put a 50% quota on, already with our stringent, trade regime. The second piece was we had a few weeks ago, and Algoma Steel really liked it too, is we went from 50% quota down to a 20% quota for any country that doesn't have a free trade agreement with us. Well, that's China and some other bad actors. But we're also looking at other places. Even if you have a free trade agreement, we're reducing that amount of steel that's allowed to come in here down to 75% as well. That goes hand in glove with some other things that we are doing, building new divisions. The transportation, the rail transportation is extremely expensive in Canada. So we're going to work with CN to reduce the costs for transporting goods to market. And that would be for steel and lumber and such things. So those things will really, really help improve as well. We have special CBS officers that have been hired to make sure that we keep that steel out, and will continue to do so. So our Buy Canadian policies, further putting trade restrictions, extreme, you know, probably some of the toughest trade restrictions, and we still have the tariffs on American steel and aluminum. So that will help, and that's what Algoma Steel has said, that with this happening, and with, you know, the continued support, that we will be able to look at building up these new divisions and diversifying the steel plant. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. So with respect to the Buy Canada plan and the government's stance to buy Canadian themselves, where are we on this? What concrete steps or actions has the government taken to begin doing this?
I think it was a little serendipity, but yesterday we actually announced our Buy Canada policy, and it's hot off the press, so I have some notes on it, but it's really, really important. You know, it was in the budget, but we're implementing it as of yesterday. So what the Prime Minister has always said is we're going to be our own best customer. So this was important to me because I took, a few years ago, a run at a private member's bill for a Buy Canadian policy. And I heard all the reasons why it wouldn't work, and we kept pushing. So with this new government, this new Prime Minister, I started pushing, you know, pre-writ, during the writ, and after the writ about a Buy Canadian policy. And so Prime Minister Carney's a pretty smart guy, and he was able to get this done. So what that means is, yes, we're going to be our own best customer. So what we had to do is we had to implement some changes, and they will be compliant with the World Trade Organizations. So beginning December 16th, strategic federal procurement will prioritize companies that demonstrate strong Canadian content. This includes goods, services in Canada, and training and, you know, customizations, domestic research and development activities. This goal is to reward companies that are rooted in Canada and contributing to long-term economic growth. We will prioritize, and this is as beginning of yesterday afternoon when it was announced, beginning December 16th, large construction and defense projects will be required to use Canadian-produced steel, aluminum, and wood products where Canadian supply is available. Materials must be manufactured or processed in Canada, ensuring that federal infrastructure and defense investments directly support domestic producers and workers. Clear and targeted procurement thresholds. The policy on prioritizing Canadian suppliers and Canadian content policy applies to major strategic procurement valued at $25 million and over. You know, and I won't go into the details of everything, but I just had an opportunity. This is fresh off the press, and really appreciate that it just happened and we're here today. But I do want to go down to some of the important stuff too as well for the small and medium-sized businesses. So in addition to what I just mentioned, we're also going to support Canadian businesses. Further measures will be rolled out by spring 2026, including the new small and medium business procurement program and the full implementation of the policies or reciprocal procurement. These initiatives will further strengthen access to federal procurement for Canadian firms. So that's really, really good news that it's just not our large employers that will be, you know, be able to access this Buy Canadian procurement policy, but we're also talking about the SMEs and how they can get involved. And I'll be working with the Chamber of Commerce to get that information out in the spring as it comes to fruition. So that's really good news. So it's happening as of yesterday. You know, promise made, promise kept by the Prime Minister, and I'm glad that he's listening and that, yeah, having a Buy Canadian procurement policy is great. It's the maximum value you can get having a Canadian procurement policy. Lowest price isn't always the best, you know, we know that for a fact. So we'll favor it and create those jobs and maintain those jobs. So thank you for that question.
Right. Okay, as a follow-up, would the federal government support new federal tax incentives for private sector manufacturers, builders, and construction projects that take steps to utilize Canadian content, including Canadian steel?
Great question. Budget 2025, Building Canada Strong, introduced a plan to generate and enable $1 trillion in total investment for 5 years. It's an ambitious goal, but we're going to do that with some what you just said, there's going to be a new productivity super deduction. Reinstates accelerated investment incentives and broad immediate expensing for machines, for people working in manufacturing, clean energy, research and development, new manufacturing buildings, lower business costs, and making Canada the most tax competitive G7 country for new investments. And that's to stay competitive with the United States as well. We've enhanced the SHRED credits that some people I think are familiar with, but they are really, really important. And of course, we're doing faster nation building projects, with the establishment of the Build Canada Homes, and with the major projects office. And we're going to be a global talent attraction. So we're investing money to recruit top international researchers and fellows and help universities hire globally, aligning immigration with a high-skill competitive competition. And we're also going to do stronger competition and consumer choices by advancing telecom competition, open banking, real-time payments, and limits on non-complete causes to lower prices. So those are some of the things that were contained in the budget that we are doing. And when that is realized, it will be $1 trillion investments for five years doing those tax breaks and those incentives.
Okay, so will the government identify the Port of Algoma as a priority major project and commit to providing support as needed to expedite its development?
Yes, and I've been working on the port for a while. I'm glad that the current city council is pursuing this. This was an idea I think that was germinated many, many, many years ago when I was on council. John Rosewell, who was an active chamber member, had a vision. It started with an airport, and when we first started chatting, we started talking about multimodal, and he was a real champion of that, so it's been worked on. I feel that right now is the right time, the perfect time to really, really push all together and push this over the proverbial finish line. We have funded a study. We already announced $400,000 for a study, an action plan. And I'm pleased to say that today I'm announcing a further $233,000 from FedNor at this chamber event, because I know it's been important to the chamber, to create an ironclad business plan, business case that can be used to look at funding from senior levels of government, to attract clients, to attract private sector partners in it. So in speaking with the CEO and the mayor, I see the project moving along quite nicely and the developments that are therein and happening. And congratulations, Tom, to all your work that you've been doing and everyone else. So that's good. And in the new year, it'll be ready. I'll be bringing up the Minister of Transport to have a discussion about this and many other things. And in the budget, it has a trade corridor funding for $5 billion. So there is a fund, and it says, as I read it, ports are eligible, rail, infrastructure. And if that sounds familiar to you, that funding was used for the Huron Central rail line, the rail, not necessarily Huron Central, but the rail between Sudbury and the Sault to do that. So we were successful in passing that. So my commitment is to work really, really hard on getting this done, because what this does is it will support our existing industry, but also help us take a look at new industries in Canada that we can link through the port and our rail system and roads. We are geographically the center of this country. It's actually north on your way to Duberville. There's actually a sign that says you're halfway on 17. Now we're tearing down barriers, interprovincial barriers, so we do trade amongst each other, right? A couple $100 billion worth of opportunity. So having another mode of transportation, which is cheap and good for the environment, makes a lot of sense. So we're going to really, really push forward. So I appreciate your support, and we'll continue to work on getting that port done to diversify our economy, because the port also opens us up to the world. And we can no longer be reliant on the United States. We're going from reliance to resilience. We're looking at new markets. I can tell you that there's European and Asian countries that are very interested in what we're doing here. Mark Carney had pulled me aside one time and said, "Hey Tara, I make sure that Canadian steel will be available in the European military rebuild and other countries and other areas." So that is really, really important. Getting that steel to market is really, really important in a cost-effective way. So thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, so you recently announced $8.6 million towards local housing under the Federal Housing Accelerator Fund, with a target of about 300 new homes over 3 years in Sault Ste. Marie. What specific progress has been made so far, and how will you ensure those homes meet the need for affordable housing, not just new homes for purchase?
Great question. And the Accelerator Fund was meant to do that, to accelerate housing and building. So the $8.6 million went to the cities so that the city can incentivize and cut red tape, and that's what they've done, and put forward a plan. So I'm happy to report that the target for 2025 was 310 units. To date, 307 new units have been built. 9 units were demolished, so we're netting 298 new, which is pretty good for first year. And in their application, they had said 15% of these would be affordable. Happy to report that you've exceeded, almost doubled the affordable housing to about 27%. So congratulations on that. And that's one piece. There are many other housing projects that are going up, and there's a difference between affordable, there's different definitions of it. So affordable housing, sometimes that means that 30% of, say, an apartment or a condo or housing has to be affordable. But then there's like lower income housing that's needed, right? Especially for some marginalized folks and people that need protection. So I was pleased to announce like $5 million for 11 units in the West End, I won't say the address, for women and children fleeing violence. So they have 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom units there where they can transition, because it's really, really important that people have a place to go without feeling safe. So that's available. We also have developed some other co-op social housing through DSAP, and with our with our Canada Housing operation, we are going to be deploying extremely rapid housing, all kinds, but in particular a lot of housing that is affordable, that people can afford to get into. And I think of different homes that we've had around here that people have used as starter homes but continue to live in. So we're doing that, and we're looking at different areas where maybe we could build them. You know what I mean? Build them and deploy them or whatnot. So I know that there are a number of builders, not people in this area, that are interested in participating with that, and I'm having those dialogues too as well. So it could also mean some more jobs here in the Sault area.
All right, thank you. So it would appear that Sweden is including a great deal more of the Canadian economy than others with respect to the proposal for fighter jets. Can Canadians expect a decision soon on that matter?
Yes, so all part of our protecting our sovereignty is we're going to build up our military. We've done a number of things, including looking at fighter jets. Now, I'm looking very, very closely at what they're doing, and I'll continue to push to make sure that Canadian product is used in this successful bidder. But Sweden has put forward a very interesting proposal that I've read through. Canada will receive the initial 16 F-35s, but we've made it absolutely clear that no decision has been made in the purchase of the full fleet. That was stuff that was happened before. But going forward, Sweden is being looked at, other countries as well, and we're going to make sure that it's the best value, creates the best jobs, and that serves the purpose that we need to protect our own sovereignty, because we can't rely on other people anymore. we know what we're talking about.
All right, thank you. So regions across Canada face very different economic realities. How is the federal government ensuring that regional development agencies like FedNor and others are funded and empowered to drive local growth?
It's a great question. Throughout my life here in Sault Ste. Marie and being involved with the Chamber and Business Economic Development, one of the things that this goes for all of Northern Ontario was a big push to make FedNor an independent agency. And so while I was parliamentary secretary, I was pleased that we got FedNor as an independent agency. It means decisions are made here, by Northerners for Northerners, and more nimble. They don't have to go to other big cities to ask, because they don't really get us, right? So that was really, really important, and to make sure that the funding's available. So that has happened, and I think it serves us well in this particular period of time. So FedNor will be responsible for the small, medium enterprise tariff loan support. So those businesses that rely on the businesses that are being hit with those big tariffs can apply to FedNor for loan support to help them pivot as well during this time. So it's just not for the large corporations that we're doing these tariff enterprise loans for, but we're going to do them for SMEs, and that's what FedNor will do. They also have the program that is really, really important, which is the Northern Ontario Development Program that helps diversify downtowns, businesses. It's been very successful in the area. And this area has been very successful in garnering a lot of support. I remind people that FedNor also organizes and funds various trade shows. And we've had good representation from Sault Ste. Marie and the Algoma district at the Royal Agricultural Fair. I was just there a couple of weeks ago supporting our local businesses. We had businesses, blueberries from Wawong to maple syrup from around here, to popcorn, to tarts, to everything. And everyone that says that they go down there, that's their best 2 weeks. And so I invite everyone, if you're in agri-food businesses, take a look at it. We also host PDAC, which is the Prospectors Developer Association of Canada. And again, local Sault Ste. Marie businesses and area businesses go down there. And it's I think the second largest mining show in the world. And, I think the cost is absolutely nominal to get a booth there. So I don't know if you can get in there this year, you could try. But if you offer any kind of services that could serve the mines up in Dubreuilville or, even further up around the way, that's great, because quite frankly, we in this new riding of mine that I'm proud to represent have so many mining opportunities. So I think about Dubreuilville, Mayor Beverly, I believe this town is about 600 people.
Yes.
And Algoma has a mini city within the city, and there's 1,000 to 1,200 people living there. Of course, that creates pressure, and we're going to work with you to make sure that we can fund the infrastructure that's needed, because obviously that takes a toll. So those are just some examples of what FedNor does: funding, organizational things, supporting loans, supporting communities, but doing these trade shows. So those are things I'm glad, and we're doing it as an independent agency through the eyes of Northern Ontarians.
Super important getting out to those shows. It's like dropping a Sault Ste. Marie business card right downtown Toronto. So,
Bingo.
Yeah, super important.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Given your experience with FedNor and the importance of a diversified economy in Northern Ontario, what is your long-term strategy to reduce our region's dependence on heavy industry like steel and instead grow sectors such as tourism, agri-food, or technology?
Great question, and that's one of the things that we're going to be relying more and more on FedNor. I think of examples of what FedNor has done in this area to help us diversify, help us to strengthen, businesses in agriculture. I think of Dave Thompson and Rain and Snap. We've become the center of excellence here in agri-food and agriculture. And we're serving this riding, but we're serving Northern Ontario. You know, really, really important that we continue to do that and strengthen that, because it's amazing when you think about what it was 10 years ago compared to now. And the agricultural growth in this area has been huge. And, you know, we also have funded through the Innovation Center, through FedNor, just recently announced $1.7 million for small and medium-sized enterprises to get involved in AI. So they're going to do workshops and training. But there's also potential of some funding of $25,000 to help your small business get into the AI, because AI is happening everywhere instantly. We all know that. So that's what we're doing, diversifying, getting into the IT business. You know, we also funded, you know, things that economic development officers for Duberville, Wawa, Horn-Payne. And, you know, that's really, really important to the smaller communities too, to have the economic development officers. And it's a really great program that FedNor does. It's usually a 3-year program with possibility of renewal and training that can really, really help communities, you know, First Nations as well. Sagamok, we just announced recently, a few months ago, you know, a strat plan for the next 5 years for Sagamok on tourism. And that Sagamok's doing a great job. And so, you know, that's really, really important that we take a look at tourism. And of course, we funded the Irma Tenure rebranding through FedNor as well. So, you know, we see how it's been helping a lot. And one of the things that I'm proposing today, and I've been thinking about, I've talked with the CEO, the mayor, and economic development, is that I think what we need to do and work with the Chamber of Commerce is have a diversification strategy. You know, I'll need to go out there and find to get some supports. What I would like is, you know, like, let's start with the steering committee, chamber member, two, you're the president, you know, you can figure out who, yourself and others, but, and the city, but a diversification strategy that really targets the opportunities federally, provincially, privately, as well. And those are things that we have to do, and we have to do it. So we take a look at how do we diversify, you know, looking at those sectors you just talked about. Also the value added opportunities in steel and wood, for instance, going forward, that we could tap into. But we need the strategy. We need to sit down together as a community that we've done in the past. And that is what today I wanted to talk to everyone about. What was, you know, we were just talking about. But we needed a diversification strategy that leads to action on diversification. That is what we need right now to support our existing businesses and to create new opportunities. And I look forward to working with you in the Chamber of Commerce as we roll this out.
I felt that was the job. Just saying. Okay, so Canadians continue to struggle with the cost of living. Which federal policies have proven effective so far, and where do you see the biggest gaps that still need action?
Well, thank you for that. I think building on what the previous government has done, in particular around dental care. Dental care is health care. We started with seniors, we went to youth, and now it's everybody, but dental care has been really, really important. And I talk to people that it's made a big change in their life. People that have never been to the dentist or haven't been to the dentist a very long time that are getting the health care they need. Pharmacare, you know, diabetes medication, $1,800 a year on average that it costs people. That was important as well. The daycare. The daycare is really, really important, and it, you know, is helping families out, but it also created opportunities for people to get into the workforce earlier. And of course, the Canada Child Benefit, which lifted 800,000 people children out of poverty. Those are the things that were working well. And then we increased the OAS, GIS, roll back the retirement age, A lot of those efforts lifted like 900,000 seniors out of poverty and made things more affordable. So building on that in this new government, one of the first things that Mark Carney and this government did was introduce the middle class tax cuts for 22 million Canadians. So that was implemented July 1st. And prior to that, Prime Minister Carney had gotten rid of the consumer carbon tax. And what that has resulted in, on average, across this country, about 18 cents a litre reduction. So, you know, those are things that come to mind, especially the school. We had a school food program, and we tried it temporarily before, but we've made that permanent. So that's important. Those are some of the affordability measures. Automatic filing for lower income people, really, really important. Lower income people sometimes just didn't feel the need to file their taxes, right? They just, I'm not gonna get anything back, so I'm not gonna do it, or perhaps they didn't have the resources or the know-how. And, you know, on my office with the United Way chain and all that, we'd have volunteer bookkeepers and tax folks who would help you with taxes, not everyone was doing it. So if we do these automatic filings, it means that people will get their Canada Child benefit, they'll get their GST rebate and stuff, they'll put more money in their pocket. That's 5 million people that we're gonna help doing that, and it'll make some difference. So those are some of the things we've done, some of the things we're doing, and I'm looking forward to reporting back how these things work at our next fireside.
Looking forward to hearing about it for sure. Okay, so how do you plan to work with Indigenous communities in Northern Ontario to advance reconciliation, improve local infrastructure, and support Indigenous-led economic development, especially in the less accessible regions?
Well, that's a great question. You know, I'm proud of the work that I've done here locally in the old riding, working closely with the Indigenous communities. Here, I always talk about the SKG, the success we had in developing. You know, we used to be the initiative at the Discovery Center, and that's that big unit across on Queen Street that is providing education. It's about the 8th Indigenous post-secondary institution in Ontario. You know, and that was the vision of the survivors of the residential school at Algoma. And I never forget the time was Shirley Roach walked over to me during a funding announcement at Algoma University, and she had this plan and this vision that was, you know, the survivors' vision, and it was Shinwalk, the chief's vision, to build a teaching wigwam. And so they had tried, and lo and behold, you know, the first time I got this, the answer was, well, the federal government doesn't fund post-secondary education generally. It's a provincial matter. But I said, I'll see what I can do. Lo and behold, we came up with this, you know, this fund. So I called them, and we got the money there. We worked hard, and it's up and running. So that's one example of what we've done, and I've learned a lot on that journey. And so it built trust, I think, with us and me and the Indigenous communities. So we were able to work together on a lot of other projects. And I can tell you that Batchewan and Gardner have been very, very successful. They just signed an MOU with almost gold about power lines. You know, I think, take a look at Mississauga Cree, what they're doing. There are so many things that they're doing, working with them and some other folks and stuff I probably shouldn't talk about, but it's pretty big. So we'll continue that work. Now, before I was an MP, I worked in the Algoma district in business economic development, helping people start small businesses and doing training and apprenticeships. So I worked a lot with the Indigenous communities throughout the area. And I know that we have, throughout the RHT, we have so many great Indigenous communities that are doing super and great, and we'll continue to work in that nation-to-nation function to continue to deliver on a host of great economic opportunities. And I say that now because I was just elected chair of INAT, which is Indigenous Northern Affairs for Canada. So it's all parties, we sit together and we take legislation that comes to us as it relates to Indigenous matters. And we look at improving it and send it back and forth and whatnot, we hear testimony. So having done that for a few months, I've learned a lot. And very amazing, there's 636 First Nations in Canada, half of which are in Ontario and BC. And there are so many great stories, there's great challenges, but we have to meet them head on. So we deal with legislation, but we also deal with stuff that comes from members. And so my job is to shepherd that through with them. We just finished a policing study, Indigenous policing study, which is really important. Chief Karen Bell, I invited her to provide testimony because you don't know who she'd be chief. She also worked for the APS, police service. And we have excellent recommendations coming forward. And we also talked about Garden River's challenge with, as she said, there's an area right there in the river where you can throw a baseball across the river. That's a hot spot for smuggling, human trafficking, guns, drugs, because again, you can throw a baseball across. So back in the day, there used to be a group, a task force of Americans and Canadians that worked together. So I thought that was a really good recommendation that we should bring that back for this area too as well. And it goes hand in glove with what we're doing with the Canada Border Service Agency and making improvements and hiring some more folks there and getting new equipment. So, that kind of work and being chairing there allows me to hear things that I can share with the riding that I represent, but I can also share good things that are happening with this riding and help Indigenous communities across this country, because we're doing a lot of good work in this area too as well. So, thank you.
Nice to hear you said you learned a lot, because education certainly is key, so.
Yes.
Yeah.
Still learning.
Absolutely. Okay, as follow-up from one of our election questions, has anything been done to ensure the effective and timely implementation of Jordan's Principle payments? Jordan's Principle is meant to guarantee timely services for First Nations children, yet vague guidelines in year-long payment delays are harming families and forcing local clinics and service providers in Algoma to have to lay off staff.
Well, thank you for that important question, and yes, I've been working on it prior to the election, during the election, and after the election. In fact, just a few days ago, I was meeting with the Parliamentary Secretary for Indigenous Services Canada. I met with the Minister as well, who is Canada's first Indigenous Minister of ISC, which is Indigenous Services Canada. And, Jordan's Principle, we've got to keep the legacy of Jordan Anderson, this is his name for, who passed away. So since 2016, we've funded about $10 billion worth of things through the Jordan's Principle. So we announced more funding recently, and at the INN committee and with my allies, including Jaime Batista, who is a Mi'kmaq, a former Mi'kmaq chief, a friend of mine, part of the Indigenous Liberal Caucus, that we raise this issue continually to make sure that those payments are timely and that the people that need it are getting the funding that they need. And I know the minister is seized with it to make it, working with all stakeholders to make sure that it happens, the funding happens quickly, that it's getting out the door faster. And so we're going to continue to work on that to make sure that it happens, and the work continues, and it's weekly for me that I'm continually advocating to make sure that the kids that need this will get it.
Look forward to hearing that move forward, so thank you. Okay, so political polarization has increased in recent years. What role do you believe MPs and party leaders should play in strengthening national unity and restoring trust in federal institutions?
Yeah, great question. I think that, over the last little while, polarized for sure, sometimes unhinged, quite frankly. And, we see a lot of what happens south of the border, and sometimes it seems to seep in to Canada. But we're Canadians. This ought not to happen. We have a different way in which we conduct ourselves, should conduct ourselves politically. You know, we are in a parliamentary system. Myself, I will, you know, fight real hard for this community, for the people I represent, passionately. I'll do it in Parliament, I'll do it on the street, you know, fighting Irish. And when I'm done that fight, I don't understand why you won't have a cup of coffee afterwards, right? Like, that's what you have to get to. And you can do that only if you're not personal with the person, right? Attack the policy, not the person. But too much is like this personal attacks. No, you do that, no one's having a cup of coffee with you. So the thing that we need to do is just remember that we are Canadians, and we do. And let's not go where other places have gone. So I have the ability to reach across the aisle. I work with all different parties on the betterment of the constituents I represent and Canadians in general. I think that's one of my strengths, always has been. I had a private member's bill one time on precarious work, and I had all party support, unanimous, and that very rarely happens in Parliament. But those are things that we need to do, and we have to do it especially now because we are, you know, being attacked. We're being attacked by the United States. It's an economic attack. You know, it is something that's about our economic sovereignty. We're not going to let that happen. We're not going to be the 51st state. Never, ever. Canadians will never let that happen. So how do we do that? We work as Team Canada. Team Canada. And we've done this in the past. When Trump put the tariffs on after he was elected in 2016, you know, it was Team Canada. Team Sault Ste. Marie by extension. And that is working with all members in federally. It's working with all parties provincially and the government. It's working with all the municipalities and First Nations. It's working with everyone, Chamber of Commerce, businesses, as Team Canada. When we are unified, there's no one who can beat us. No one. We will continue to be the best country in the world. And how do we know that? Well, I think Trump is just absolutely envious of what we have here. And he's set out to destroy some of that, including our steel plant. And I'll never let that happen.
All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, as we're concluding, I really want to thank Terry and all of your staff for working with the Chamber to help facilitate this afternoon, and I appreciate all of you being here to take part in it. It's really important that we have these conversations. On behalf of the Chamber, I want to wish all of you, all of your families, your businesses and community a very Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, prosperous New Year. We're gonna forge forward and make things happen as we move through the holiday season and make sure it's a very healthy, prosperous new year ahead. So thank you again to all of you. I really appreciate you being here, and we'll talk again soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lene. But as Colombo, the old TV, said one more thing. And thanks for the Chamber for doing this. Service Canada will be doing a seminar tomorrow.
2 o'clock now?
2 o'clock, and it's for SMEs that are looking how Service Canada can help them navigate the tariff situation. So if you have the opportunity, please go online and you know, have the opportunity to hear folks from Service Canada.
Yeah, there's a few programs in place. I know Sioux College has had a few and whatnot. So yeah, definitely hop on and see what's available. That's awesome. Thank you so much. Enjoy your afternoon. And again, grateful that you were here. Thank you.